Hello everybody! Welcome to another happy hour with me. Good to have everyone back. It's a shame I don't get to see you all, but it is officially Wednesday. It is hump day. I can't decide if every day feels like Wednesday, every day feels like Saturday, or every day feels like Monday. But they are all starting to feel the same for sure. So I'm very grateful that so many of you have spent a little time with me at 4:30, a handful of days a week. I will tell you that for this happy hour, I am back to my favorite adult beverage of choice, tequila. I will say I got a lot of flack last time privately on the side with text messaging. For those of you that were disappointed, I was drinking green tea and for happy hour last time. So I'm back to tequila just to come back strong. So please start to enjoy your own happy hour beverages. And as we spend a moment getting everybody in the room here, welcome. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. It's been an incredible feeling. I probably have never been busier in the last 2 weeks of my entire life and never had less business happening through our business. I'm sure many of you will feel the same way. It's frenetic, and yet you're not even open. It's pretty weird how that's worked out. Maybe it'll start to tamp down once we get this final chapter put to bed, which is how are we going to secure some short-term money for our businesses just to give us a little breath of relief to get us back open, which is what our topic is du jour. So now that I feel like a lot of us are in, take one more sip and we'll get going here. So feel free, if you want to have fun in your comments, to share what your beverage is for happy hour. No need to, but I always enjoy seeing some of the random things people are enjoying. Anyway, so I want to just give a little bit of a disclaimer and just set us up for today. So the topic today is to get back into what we talked about a little bit last time, which is this payroll protection program, which I'm going to call PPP moving forward. And then just circle back a little bit on the EIDL, which is the Emergency SBA Loan. Many of you are probably aware of this, but the official release of information happened late last night, and so we had some new information since the last time we talked about this. So, which got me thinking is one of the disclaimers I wanted to say to you, because if you go back and look at some of the old ones, some of the things that we talked about then are already outdated, and information's changing, and that very well might happen again. So, this is the most current information that we have. And hopefully it won't change meaningfully, but it has changed. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, and just kind of restate some of this will be review as well, but I think it's good because we're hearing so many different things and the information's happening so fast and it's getting confusing, and so hopefully if I can be somewhat of a resource to help you dig through all this, that would make me happy. I will say though, as a disclaimer, I am not an accountant or a lawyer, and I sell shampoo for a living. Although I've spent a ton of time researching this, you definitely want to just still do your own homework and talk to your own people. But I think there's hopefully some education you can get out of this. So let's dive into it. The first thing I wanted to get out there, and I've sat through a ton of my own version of webinars and things from a lot of different professionals. And this is something I'm starting to hear, and I wanted to get this out. This is a really important cautionary thing for you guys, because I would hate to hear a story of one of our clients, one of my friends, one of you guys getting taken advantage of. But you really want to watch out for scams. Apparently, when there's a lot of money at stake, a lot of bad actors, a lot of scammers can start to present themselves. So please be careful in what you're doing and don't fall victim to one of these scams. So inclusive of that is this. There is no reason, irrespective of which loan you apply for, that you should be paying somebody to get you one of these loans. So if somebody presents themselves saying, hey, pay me, I'll get you a loan faster, I'll get you this, I'm the guy that that can make this happen, or the girl, you don't want to do that. All the loans, particularly the PPP loans, are the same no matter which bank you go to. So nobody has an inside track, nobody is going to do anything other than maybe help you prepare your documents. So maybe if you pay your accountant, if you need help with that, but there's no reason to pay anybody to get one of these loans. That's number one. Number two is be very, very wary of short-term loan opportunities. There's a lot of very risky, somewhat shady short-term financial loans that are being thrown around, and you might get solicited. Just be really careful. Most of those are more harm than good. And so with all these other opportunities, I would encourage you to stay away from those. So the last thing as part of that is the EIDL. We said this before, but just to clarify, the EIDL, which is the Emergency SBA Loan, that is applied directly through the SBA.gov website. There's no other third-party outside person that should be talking about that. That loan is directly through the government. Conversely, the PPP loan, the Payroll Protection Program, that is done through third-party lenders, which are basically local banks. And I highly encourage you to go to your current banker that you work with, because these banks are not making a lot of money working with these loans. So most of them are doing it as a service to the overall economy and a service to you as their customer. So you're probably more apt to get better service and get into the front of the line if you're already a client of this bank. So any local lender that does SBA loans would be the first place you go to for the PPP loan. So it's either the government for the EIDL or a third-party lender like your local bank for the PPP. There's really no other reason to talk to anyone else. Which gets me to, if you're in a serious cash pinch and some of these short-term lenders start to seem attractive, there's two possible routes you could go if for some reason you need money right away. So the first one is the EIDL, which is the Emergency SBA Loan. If you apply, you are supposed to get $10,000 put in your direct deposit account within 3 days, whether you are accepted or not. And if you get rejected, you do not have to pay that $10,000 back. How amazing is that? So that's a great way to get money in the short term if you need it. Conversely, there's something I know a little bit less about, which is called an SBA Express line of credit. Now that is done via the same third-party lenders that are doing the other SBA PPP loans, and apparently there's this express line of credit which you can get for up to $25,000. That's this bridge loan that gets you the money real fast if while you're waiting for one of the other loans. And I would encourage you to talk to one of your lenders about that if you absolutely need the money right away. Okay, let's take a breath and enjoy one of our drinks for happy hour. I mean, after all, this is happy hour. And Melinda, you're drinking Life Water. That's so, now you're making me feel guilty. Anyway, so, all right, let's get into the PPP loan. Some people are calling it the 7A loan. It's part of the CARES Act. It's getting thrown around a lot of different names. This is the one that's $350 billion. That is the big opportunity that everyone's talking about. And so this is the one that we want to spend most of our time on. All right, so first of all, who is eligible? Pretty much everybody in our industry is going to be eligible, in that you're all within a certain, less than 500 people. It's eligible for almost any type of business, including sole proprietorships. And if you happen to be an independent contractor out there, maybe you are working on your own, you can apply for this loan to subsidize what would have been your income up to $100,000. So this is pretty much for everybody. There isn't even a credit qualification or a business performance qualification. So even if your business is new, is not profitable, maybe your credit's not great, this loan is still for you. The only people that might have trouble getting this loan are people that have filed for bankruptcy in the last 7 years, defaulted on an SBA loan already, or have a criminal record or are not a U.S. citizen. It's not entirely clear if you're ruled out, but I know it might be a little tougher for you because they're all questions they're going to ask you on the application. In terms of when these loans are open for business, April 3rd, which I think is this Friday. Apparently, banks can begin accepting applications for this loan on April 3rd. If you are applying as an independent contractor or self-employed, that date is April 10th. You're a week later. But for most business owners, or for all business owners, it's April 3rd. Now, that doesn't mean you're getting the money April 3rd. That's the application. It's not clear when the money's happening, but the term that I heard is the cash won't be on the street, most likely for several weeks. So when you get the money is different than when you apply, and that's important, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, In addition, there is no personal guarantee for these loans. Another amazing thing, because a lot of SBA loans traditionally do have personal guarantees. So the idea that you can get this money, no qualifications, no personal guarantee, it's a huge once in a potentially lifetime opportunity to get some capital in a once in a lifetime situation. Hopefully once in a lifetime. All right, so in terms of the loan amount, the amount you will be eligible for is 2.5 months of the last year's monthly payroll. So you're going to figure out what your average monthly payroll is, and that includes all payroll expenses. So it includes the taxes as well, and any other payroll associated expense. And you're going to find the average of the last 12 months, and you're going to multiply that times 2.5. That is your potential loan amount. You don't have to take that full amount, but that will be up to the amount that you can take. The rate of that loan, and this has changed since the last time we did this. This is a big change. The rate in the term. The rate in the term is now 0.5%, so 0.5% interest, and it's a 2-year term. Now, before they were saying 4% interest and a 10-year term, so this is a huge change. So the loan will need to be paid back in 2 years, but you're only going to pay 0.5%. So virtually, it's like you're not even paying interest to get this loan. And in addition to that, you won't have to pay your first payment for 6 months. I'll get to your question in a second, Katie. That's a good question. I'm going to get to that. So you have a 6-month window between your payments starting. You're only paying 0.5%, but the whole thing has to be paid off in 2 years. However, the portion that does not need to be paid back, is this, what everyone's talking about, this 8-week forgiveness period. Now, this is what makes this loan so awesome, potentially. However, for us salons and art of business as well, because we're in the same boat, if we're not open, this is going to potentially negate or cause us to have to make those decisions. And I'm going to talk to you in a second about this. So basically, what the whole premise of this loan, and particularly this forgiveness, is to try to keep people on the payroll. That's the whole reason why they're doing this. And in our industry, we were forced to close by the governors of our states for the most part. So most of us have already laid off our employees. So here's the deal. The way this works is from the 8 weeks, the clock begins the moment you get the money. So not when you apply for it, but the moment the money goes into your account. From that point until 8 weeks from that point, you will get forgiveness for any payroll cost, mortgage interest cost, utility cost, health benefit cost, or rent that you use your loan for to pay for any of those specific expenses in the 8 weeks starting from the date you get the money. I'm going to take a breath. I know I'm going through a lot. I'm going through it fast. However, there's a big caveat to this. The amount of money that you're allowed to apply for forgiveness for begins to go down proportionately by the decrease in employees you have on your payroll from what you averaged or from where you were at in the end of 2019. So I'm going to use a large number for math's sake. If you had 100 employees in the end of 2019 and you only have 20 employees in that 8-week period, you're only going to get 20% of that 8-week forgiveness benefit. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. I like Southern Comfort, Pete, good stuff. It's a little more complicated than that. There's a little more devil in the details, probably more than I want to get into on this Facebook Live, but that is the gist of it. The other little caveat to that 8-week forgiveness is that one of the new rules that it looks like they wrote in is that right now 75% of the money that you get forgiven for has to be payroll and related payroll expenses. In other words, you can't do 80% of it be rent. They won't accept that. So for the most part, all your forgiveness has to be in the form of payroll. So everyone's mind's probably wondering, just like mine has, because we're in a very similar situation as you. The ideal scenario would be that you get the money right before you're about to open, because once you open and you hire your team back, you're going to get 8 weeks of free payroll covered by that forgiveness. That would be awesome. However, what happens if you get the money in 10 days and you're not sure when you're going to open, or you know you're not going to be open for at least another 4 weeks? Then you're going to have a decision to make. Do you bring your people back and pay them to do nothing? Or do you just keep them on unemployment and then bring them back right before, and then basically just absorb the deduction in what will be the reduction in your forgiveness pot of money? That's for everyone to decide. I will tell you personally, I think because unemployment benefits are so aggressive right now and so good for most all of our team, our position is going to be, there's no reason to bring people back when there's nothing to do. And simply, when we know we're going to open, that's when we'll bring people back. And we'll, if that allows us to get that forgiveness, great. But obviously, we would rather wait to get the money as long as we could. Which brings up another question. Could you wait to apply for the loan with the idea that you don't want to get the money too soon? You could do that. However, some experts that I've been talking to are saying that they think this money's going to run out very fast. So by doing that, you might risk the money's gone by the time you get your loan application in. Now, what could happen is Congress could increase the pot of money. So that's a risk you could take and just hope that that happens. However, who knows? Now, the other thing that could happen is supposedly the rules on forgiveness are somewhat murky right now, and there's time for them to figure all this out. Now, what we could hope is that some genius decides, well, that 8-week window won't start for companies that have been mandated to close until the day that the government allows them to open. Wouldn't that be amazing? So maybe that will happen. Who knows? But right now that hasn't happened, so that's a calculated risk we're all going to have to take. I'm just looking at a question. So if you brought your people, so until June 30th, if you've laid your people off, you can bring them back before June 30th, and that would correct, and I say correct, that would account for in the equation, and you'd be okay in terms of that 8-week period of forgiveness. But if you're not paying them in that 8 weeks, it won't matter. You can only submit for expenses you paid. So you got to bring them back before the 8 weeks begins, as long as that time period is before June 30th. So the question that someone just asked, is that taking the place of unemployment? It is. In other words, if you bring them back and pay them and use that 8-week forgiveness, they're no longer collecting unemployment. They are back on your payroll. So for the employee, it's one or the other. Okay. I'm going to take a breath and a drink, because I know I've been going real fast. Brian asks, can you defer acceptance of the money before and wait? In other words, apply now, but tell them you don't want the money until later. That's a great question. I asked the same question, and what I was told is that the process is somewhat automated, they believe. So once the bank submits the application, it's just kind of in a machine, and it happens when it happens. So the world isn't that kind to us, Brian. We can't say, hey, here's the application now, but send me the money in 30 days. That unfortunately isn't going to work. Hopefully, there's so many people applying for this that we'll send it in now, we'll get approved, but it'll take them 30 days to get us the money. And that might not be good for some people, but for many people that own salons, that would be actually a great scenario. Okay, so let me just look at my notes here. I think I hit most of that. All right, so the last points I wanted to make was to transition back to the EIDL, which is the Emergency SBA Loan. By the way, the other loan sometimes goes by the name of 7A. That's the PPP loan. This EIDL sometimes goes by 7B. So the 7B Emergency SBA Loan. Now this pot of money is dramatically smaller, so it isn't clear as to who's going to get approved for this or not. But again, supposedly if you don't get approved and you apply, you still get 10 grand and you'll never have to pay that back. So the next question that people are probably asking is, can you apply for both of these loans? So that is a little murky, but my understanding is you can apply for both, but once you accept one, you probably will not be able to get the other if it's for the same expenses. Now, which means in practicality, you probably should just assume you're going to take one or the other. Could you try to take an EIDL loan for rent or to pay your suppliers and other expenses that aren't rent, payroll, and health benefits? Yeah, you could, but I have a feeling that's going to get tricky, and you probably might risk only getting one. So I would anticipate you're probably only going to get one. The other thing that's good about this loan is that if you're under 200 grand, which I expect most of us would be, is that there is no personal guarantee on this, and the application process is a little bit easier, although there is more paperwork for this process than there is for the PPP loan. Now this loan has no loan forgiveness, so it is a loan, so it's not free money. But remember, if we're all in the situation where we're getting the money and we're not open for 6 weeks anyway, the forgiveness thing is going to be a lot less meaningful for us than it is for other industries. So, that may or may not even be an issue. This loan is a 4% loan, so it is a higher rate, but it's a 30-year payback period, and there's 12 months of no payments. So this loan, if you took this loan in a vacuum and you weren't comparing it to the PPP loan, this loan is pretty awesome also. The idea that you're going to get access without a personal guarantee to 4% of money with a 30-year payback, which is basically like a mortgage, and you won't have any payments for a year, you might decide, and if you don't get approved, you're at least going to get 10 grand anyway that you'll never have to pay back. You might decide that this is a good one to go after. So this one, again, is done right through the SBA website, and you could apply right now. Now, it seems like the website allows you to go on the application process right now, but stops right at the point where you submit for the 10 grand. So you won't necessarily know if you got approved, but I think what it does do is it puts you right in the running for the 10 grand immediately. So that is that. I think I hit everything I wanted to. I'm about at 21 minutes, which was about where I wanted to be. Look at some questions here. Can you send employees back to unemployment after the 8-week period? That's a good question, Liz. So ultimately, the answer, I believe, is yes. I mean, could you bring your employees back? I think where you're going with this is, could I bring my employees back, hope that I'll be open, thereby getting forgiveness, but if the shit hits the fan and we're still closed 8 weeks later, could I just lay them off again? And I believe the answer is yes. That's a great question. You might want to consult one of your, whoever is your professional that you work with, but I think the answer would be yes. And so that might be the route you go. You bring people back and just say, hey, let's see where the chips fall. Here's what I will tell you is where I'm going with this, which is there was a saying, a term that I heard from a person who's like leadership when you're in this disaster crisis scenarios, which is cash is king and cash isn't cash until it's cash, which I interpret as let's get the money, apply for the loan, and figure it out later. And that's really what we're going to do in our business. And I think to the degree that I'm giving advice, and don't hold me to it, it's not legal advice, I would think that applying for it right away is the move, seeing how quick the money comes in, and then figure it out from there. And that's probably the way we're going to approach it. Someone asked if I keep doing a happy hour after this pandemic. I will tell you, it's not helping the amount of days I'm drinking, so I don't know, we'll see. And it's cutting into my workouts. But anyway, I can't be with you guys all personally, so I appreciate that we're doing this. I think this will come to the end of our happy hour. Hopefully you got a little nugget out of this. I appreciate you guys. I'm thinking about you. If you have, a lot of you know my personal, you can DM me or Art of Business if you have questions after this. Wait, hold on. One last question. What can you use the 7B loan for? Okay, so that's a great point. Kelly, so the 7B loan, which is the emergency SBA loan, there's another benefit to that versus the PPP. That loan you can use for pretty much anything. So there's less limitations on what you could use the money for that loan. So it's another reason why that loan might not be quite as unfavorable, as some people are comparing it to the PPP. So I think that's it. I still have comments. We're going to sign off here. Appreciate it. Cheers. Have a drink, and we'll see you next time.